Assassin's Creed Shadows is a good game. It's highly polished. There's clearly a ton of resources that went behind creating this experience. I would even go so far as to say it is the best game to be and play a ninja that I've ever experienced. The Assassin's Creed formula just works its best when you're doing these sorts of things in this sort of environment. But everything that's good about this game slowly through attrition gets worse and worse by Ubisoft's formula of game making. The more you play this game, the more you dislike it. And I really do think in this current environment, Ubisoft's way of making games just doesn't work anymore, because there is a really good game here that is strangled by the bloat that's trying to make a game experience longer. In Assassin's Creed Shadows, you play as two characters. One, Naoe, a member of the Egan clan in the Warring States period of Japan, a very famous period that's been depicted in media again and again. We're talking Nobunaga, Akechi. It's what the Onimusha series was about. It's a very iconic time in history, and you are playing as the most iconic group of ninjas to exist, the real shinobis. And in that role, you are basically trying to get revenge against Nobunaga, and then maybe figure out why a secret group of Ronin are killing people indiscriminately. And you also play as Yasuke, a historically adjacent black samurai who is the bull in the china shop, not at all the ninja, and isn't made to be that way, who is trying to get revenge for his fallen lord. That clear motivation continues to different quest areas, and I think they do a really good job initially of making you care about these disparate areas, because there's so much to see in this game. They do a tried and tested formula of giving you one or two interesting characters that are from a faction that have main quests in an area. You complete a series of quests with some ancillary quests. You learn more about the area, you learn more about the factions. It works. RPGs have been doing this for a really long time. I do feel like Ubisoft is, for maybe the first time, really trying to give you impetus and a reason to look at this massive map and to examine all of the hundreds of different things that you do. It's fun, it's interesting, and it really gets you motivated. There's something about being a clandestine figure that's hiding in the shadows, peeking over these Japanese roofs, trying to assassinate these key samurais that you know, if you attack head on as Naoe, would kill you immediately. That just works. It's really fun. They incentivize you really well to navigate into these castles and to pick off these specific people to get that new gear. There's a good gear loop. And I found myself seeking out these experiences narratively because it made sense and because it was rewarding in the gameplay. It was fun. This one example that I'm talking about infiltrating a Japanese castle, throughout maybe 60 hours of gameplay, happens 60 to 80 different disparate times. And the motivation for it does not change from the very first time you do it to the last. Everything in this game works that way, where they have something that worked initially that made you interested in the one area, and they repeat it, not a couple times, not a dozen times, but hundreds of times. It makes a game that should be good for maybe 25 hours in some ways, extend it to well over 100-hour experience. And I really do think in the way we look at games now, where games live for maybe 2 weeks, that's how long people can really focus on these incredible works. Ubisoft's way of making games last longer for no real reason. There's not a good motivation why we would keep playing these games. You need to innovate, and it just doesn't happen. They added an entire sim story where you're able to make, in incredible detail, your own clan valley, where you're picking out hundreds of very, very specific little things to make your own city. It's fun, it's interesting, it's way too dense and not rewarding. And even when the gameplay does work, they add really odd things about capping your progress level. So you need to do certain quests that are not fun, that are not supported by the narrative in order to even upgrade yourself to get to a point where you can continue playing. At every instance when this game does something good, where it makes you feel like a real ninja, where it has some very good acting, especially for Yasuke, not so much for Naoe. I do think the French to Japanese to English translations of some of these acting and the direction isn't as good as it should be. If you are going to play the game, I suggest immersion mode, where there are just the Japanese language being spoke with subtitles. It works a lot better. Even when that is working well, those interesting narrative opportunities get slimmer and slimmer, and you don't find yourself doing different things to motivate you to keep playing. And when you compare that to an experience that I think you have to compare it to, Ghost of Tsushima, because it's hard not to, that is the biggest difference here. Assassin's Creed Shadows is way more fun to be a ninja than it is in Ghost of Tsushima, but the overall game, Ghost of Tsushima, is so much better because it respects your time, it gives you the right narrative and gameplay incentives to keep playing, and I don't think that this game, as it is now, will be exciting for enough hours to justify the effort put into it. There is a really good 15 to 20 hour game, but when the gameplay pauses, the gameplay plateaus between the first act, when you get both characters, to when you can finally play as both characters again, is almost 20 hours long. And it's not that fun. And I think we're past the time where people buy one game and slowly chip away at it over months and months. And if that was this game, they needed to make better incentives to keep you working at it. There's incredible work here, but in 2025, it's just not enough. Still, if you're going to play this, maybe that's the best way to play, where you do chip away at it. You don't really care as much about some of the deeper narratives, and you just want to play as a fun ninja for short bursts of time, for months at a time. That is who this game is tailor-made for. For me, I do think they needed a shift, and I hope we see it, because in the UI, things changed. In the implementation of some of these characters, we do see an evolution, but the Ubisoft bloat in this game is massive and really hurts the overall experience.